Good morning, everybody. I can see that you're very awake this morning, but good morning. We're busy with the Innovation Lab, so just that everybody is aware of where we're at. We're innovating together. Here's the process, just quickly for you to understand, is the bottom floor is we did some initial research in the future of theological education. That research document was circulated to all of you in the weeks and months before this gathering, and the initial research was shared with you. Then we did a survey. Can I quickly see where's my friends that completed the survey? Anybody? There's some hands. Thank you for doing your homework. Okay, your voices will be heard. Actually, the questions we're going to speak through today is based on some of that survey feedback that we have received thus far. So all of that information from the 300 plus of you that filled in the survey is helping shape the conversation. Then we're going to have conversations this week, 2 a day, 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening, and that's going to build on top of that, which is going to result in a report at the end of the week, which is going to enable us to not only project a trajectory, not only a projected future, but actually a preferred future. What needs to be done for God's preferred future to come about in theological education? So that's what we're working on together today. So let's do that a little bit. If you're on the Menti, last chance. If you need to get on the Menti, this is your last chance to do this. I'm kidding. There's lots of chances. You can go at any point in time, walk over to a pillar, get up there, and let me ask you this question. Click on the map where you're from. So a map should be appearing there, and you should be able to right now give us an indication where it is that you're joining us from today for the conversation. And you'll see the maps populate as people around the room are saying, this is where I'm from, this is the space that I'm engaging from. You'll actually see those little maps fill out, and all the different people in this room from all the different places, that's bringing different voices together. What did somebody say yesterday? We need to get better at hearing minority voices and get away from just listening to the West. We have that opportunity today. Look at that map full up. We have people from all around the world participating in this conversation together today. What an exciting moment it is. The next question is kind of a cold question that I'm just going to ask cold to all of you. And if everybody has positioned themselves on the map, let me see where we're at numbers-wise. Okay, wonderful. I think we've got most of you on. Still some more coming in, though, so do keep positioning yourself on the map. And the next question is a bit of a cold question, and if you've already positioned yourself on the map, I want to ask you this question real quick. And the question is simply this, is if you think of the future of theological education, which words come to mind? You can think of positive things, you can think of negative things, you can think of exciting things, you can think of different things that are barriers to overcome, different technologies that are to be embraced. But if you were to summarize the future of theological education in a couple of key words, what would those key words be? So what would those overarching themes be? If you were just saying theological education in the future is, what would be the next word of that sentence? And you've got 5 words to basically say this is your expectation of the projection of theological education, or the preferred future of theological education. If there's something you want to seed in our minds today, that you say, if we forget everything else, we've got to keep hold of this one thought. As I was completing that survey, the thing that stood out to me is this one thing. As we're busy framing these conversations at C-25, this is the word. These are the things that we need to remember. Put those words down and submit some of them. Contextual seems to be important. Online, flexible, holistic, collaborative, accessible, global, relevant, challenging, missional, necessary. I love that. It's necessary. What a good word for us to know where we're going these couple of days that is to come. We're all able to participate in these incredible ways. So over the next couple of sessions, we're going to follow an arc of conversation, and please keep sending your words in while I'm explaining this, but we're starting this morning with a conversation around relevance. This evening, we're actually going to progress the conversation a little further and start speaking about the barriers that's in our way. Tomorrow morning, we're going to look at this from a perspective of technology. What are the new emerging technologies that we're dealing with. And then we're actually going to start transitioning from there into a conversation where we're going to start collating and bringing together the different things that were said. And on Thursday morning, we're actually going to wrap things up together where we're going to say, okay, these things have been said. What is most important? So you'll see we'll do a lot of that feedback essentially. And then on Friday, we're going to give our final report together. So pray for us this week as we're working through all this information and conversations and bringing them together. It seems like contextual, accessible, collaboration, missional, relevant are the biggest words on our screen, which means most of us have said those words. So this morning, we're going to have a conversation around the concept of relevance. In a world that is fast-paced and quickly changing, how do we stay relevant? As we're heading into the cone of the future, how do we stay relevant in the process? Mariana, can you do me a favor and just give me a 5-minute, 4-minute, just count me down for the last 5 minutes, if you don't mind? Okay, so the world is changing. How many of you know that? Okay, the world is changing. What we don't know is how quickly the world is changing. The rate of change is higher than what it's ever been. One of the ways they measure that is through something called knowledge velocity. Have you ever heard of knowledge velocity? Knowledge velocity is basically the rate at which the world doubles what it knows. Okay, so if you think back at the time of Jesus, it took about 1,000 years for the world to double its knowledge, right? So all the knowledge on earth, if you were to put the knowledge together, every 1,000 years it would double. By the 1900s, it was down to 100 years. It would take 100 years for the world to double its knowledge. By 1945, we're talking about 25 years. By 1982, it was 13 months. And today, they assume that we double our knowledge every 12 hours. Okay, so that means from right now until tomorrow when we come together, the world would have doubled its knowledge twice. If you think about it, and some of you are going, that can't be true. That is just ridiculous. Where's my escapist friends? Okay, thank you, escapist friends. I'm about to prove you wrong. Okay, here's the problem. Do you know why it's happening? Because the reality is what's happening right now is we're not only gaining information quickly, we're storing information more quickly, and we're accessing information quickly. And more than 50% of the information, more of 50% than what we know today, will not be generated by the 8 billion people on the planet, but it will be generated by trillions of artificial engines that's generating knowledge. Right? Never before in history has that been the case. My car back home is driving around gaining knowledge as it's driving because its neural engine that Elon Musk thought out is actually using its 9 cameras to learn how to drive while my wife is driving around, and she's a good driver, so there's some good knowledge being brought together there. Not that much when I'm driving. But here's the thing, things are changing. The world has changed more in the last 10 years than the previous 20 years. Is that true? The world has changed more since the year 2000 than what the world changed from the year 2000. If you were to go back to the year 1940 to 2000, there was more change between 2000 and 2025 than 1940 and 2000. Would you agree? If you were to go from 1940 all the way back to the 1900s, right, there's more change in those 40 years than what there is between 1900 and 1000 AD. Think about it. The way Jesus lived, the world that he lived in, the way people got around in the year 0 and in the year 1900 was pretty much the same thing. There was slight changes in technology. But from the year 1900, no planes, no cars, no to today. Just imagine how things have changed. The rate of change is ever accelerating, and that's the world we live in. Unless we make peace with the fact that we're living in a world that's changing quicker than ever before, we'll never get ahead. And here's the problem. Here's the hard thing about what we're facing, is that as the rate of change increases, it becomes harder and harder for organizations to change at the same rate on the inside. Who is struggling to keep up with the rate of change outside of you? Just me? I mean, it feels like we've got to continuously, there's a new technology. Just when you thought you had ChatGPT under control, they were telling you, oh no, ChatGPT is old news. It's this now, or it's that now. Because what? It's changing like this. It keeps changing because it's rapidly evolving. Now, here's the sad part. When the rate of change inside is slower than the rate of change outside, irrelevance is what follows. Isn't it true? It's true for organizations. It's true for individuals. I remember my aunt is a professor at a large university, and just as she was on her way to retiring, she asked me to show her how AI worked. And I took her through the whole process, and she looked at it and she said, I'm so grateful that I'm done. Because the rate of change accelerating on the outside, and we wonder why we're struggling with mental health. Because human beings are struggling to keep up with the rate of change all around us. Wish we had time for this, but there's something called Murtag's law. If you find some time, look at it. But basically, it's how organizations can't keep up with the rate of change. It's a great study to do if you have a moment to kind of think through that. But I want to make sure that I'm hearing from you more today, and I'm not sharing too much. But basically, when technological advances is quicker than the organizations falls into irrelevance, right? So think BlackBerry for a moment, okay? Think Nokia, right? These things were at the top of their game, but they didn't keep up with the rate of change, so they went from the top to the bottom in a space of years. What used to take hundreds of years for companies or technology to become irrelevant is now happening in a matter of months. In fact, it's happening in a matter of weeks. The news cycle has never been shorter. People's attention spans have never been shorter because the world is changing quicker and quicker and quicker, and we're finding it harder and harder and harder to keep up. There's a guy called Joseph Schumpeter, and he came up with this idea of creative disruption. And basically, his theory of creative disruption is simply this. He says that whenever the way the world advances is that we make advancements, and those advancements that we make is then followed up by new technology that comes along, and it makes the previous technology irrelevant. It builds on the previous technology, but it makes it irrelevant. And basically, he's taken the world and he broke it into these innovation cycles, right? So if you look at these innovation cycles, we had water, power, textiles, and then in a shorter period of time, we had steam, rail, then we had electricity, chemicals, then we had petrochemicals, electronics, aviation, then we went on, and the next one was, we had digital network software, now we have AI, robots, those things. Do you guys see how the one set of technology, the creative disruption changes the previous one? It makes it irrelevant, and we move along. The same is true of the church, right? If you look through the early church, you'll see that the phases of theological education over the ages of the church, that we went through these different ages, and every time a new technology came along and it actually disrupted the previous season of the church, and right through to the modern day, it kept on changing things. And I was actually in London, so this is the modern one, right? As we're in this new phase, in this new age of unity movements and non-denominational and the rise of the South. But I was in London and I saw this building, beautiful building, but it's grown over with weeds and different plants, and the doors are boarded up. At some point, this Methodist church in London was so relevant that everybody gave money and built this beautiful space. But it's so irrelevant to its society that although it is right across from the underground station, it's not even worth upkeeping. Nobody goes there. It became irrelevant, but it still holds incredible potential. And how do we grab a hold of that potential in the midst of this irrelevance? I wish we had time to go through this, but there's a little bit of a shakedown of how it's changed over the last couple of years. But I want us to wrap up with a little bit of a creative disruption of our own. So I want you to grab your phone again, as we're going to have a quick conversation in the last couple of minutes together here. And I want to just, from all that I've said, I want to glean some of your wisdom. And we're going to hear from the room here for a moment. So if you can go back to your web browser, or make sure that you go to menti.com, insert the code, or simply scan that QR code. Is everybody back there? You ready? Okay, so you've heard from me. It's your turn to speak. In 3 to 5 words, what would describe the current innovation cycle of theological education? So if remember, I showed you guys the innovation cycles and how one innovation cycle makes the previous innovation cycle obsolete. If you think back of theological education right now, what describes the current innovation cycle? What is cutting edge today? What is the age we're living in today? Somebody prayed yesterday about the sons of Issachar, and that we might discern the moment, that we might understand where we're at. What are the words, if you think about it right now? Somebody said high flex. Somebody said accessible. Somebody said distracted. That's a strong word. Multiple people said distracted. Exciting, online seems to be a big thing. Challenging, chaotic, accessibility, micro-credentials seems to be a big thing that is shaping it right now. So all these words, and thank you for submitting them, and keep submitting them. If you still have some, now is your final moment to press send if you're still thinking about some words. But if you think through all these things, what we did is we actually went back to the survey results, and we looked at what you said in the survey results, and based on the survey results, we said there's these 5 key trends that is significantly impacting theological education at the moment. We said digitization is a big theme that emerged from the survey that you sent. The second one was expanding access, non-formal, right? I think micro-credentials could probably fit into that one as well. Institutional collaboration was another issue that came from this group where people said, listen, that's a big deal. And then evolving perceptions, the relativism and the social justice and the realities that surround us, all these different things are speaking into the current reality that we're facing. So what I'm asking you to do in these next couple of moments is I want you to quickly force rank them and say, how do you think these different bits and pieces fit together as the theological education is shaping up at this point in time? What are the biggest factors? What are the biggest issues? And what are the least important issues for us to worry about at this point in time? And what this is going to do is your rating right now is actually going to shape our conversation later this afternoon as we come together again. So this afternoon, we'll take these and we'll start tackling them. It seems like expanding access, the whole micro-credentialing, non-formal, and sustainability issues, those two are linked hand in hand. And as the different results are coming in from the group, it seems like they're swapping one to the other, with digitization clearly being the biggest factor of our current season, right? So this is important, guys, because when you go from here, you've got to go and you've got to say, how well am I doing in the current creative disruption if I am to stay relevant going forward? One last question as we wrap up our time here together today. And this is where I want to take a moment for the introverts amongst you to think for a moment. I'm sorry, introverts. I've been speaking and speaking and speaking, and they're waving a 1-minute sign here at me. So I'm going to cede my last minute for you to just be with you and your thoughts and give us a great idea here for a moment. What needs to change for us to stay relevant? What needs to shift? And what you'll see as you submit your different ideas right now in this moment, the board is going to populate, and eventually we'll get AI to bring them all together. But I really want to ask you, if you want to write a paragraph at this point in time, write a paragraph. You have a moment to do that right now. By the way, I saw a lot of you trying to take pictures of these slides. We will show you guys how we can continue this conversation asynchronously this afternoon. All the slides from today and from yesterday will be available, and there's a digital space where we can actually engage these conversations further that we will start doing a little bit later. I will ask Julie that we just send it out via Cvent to also get you guys on that digital space so that you can download slides and even the feedback from the room here, because I know that it will be helpful even as you construct your reports and go forth from here. So 160 great ideas that's important for us to stay relevant. I will summarize them and bring them back this afternoon as we continue this conversation.